I know that you've probably heard of the rotator cuff. Though most people call it the rotator cup. That's not what it is. It's the cuff, C-U-F-F. That is the name of the attachment point on the shoulder of three muscles. Those muscles act together to rotate your shoulder and also to facilitate proper mechanics of your shoulder when you reach overhead. So many people have old low-grade injuries or chronic weakness of the rotator cuff that causes it to degenerate. And really what I mean by that is the following. So this is my humerus, my arm bone at the shoulder. It sits in a very narrow, shallow socket. It's really what we would call a ball and saucer joint, not really like the hip, a real stable ball and socket. The rotator cuff is this attachment point right underneath the top of the shoulder where these three muscles attach. And when you reach overhead, it looks as if the rotator cuff is going to be pinched underneath the bony roof of the shoulder, called the acromion. If the muscles that externally rotate your shoulder are weak, that is exactly what happens. This repeatedly gets impinged. And the classic symptoms of that are: one, when you reach overhead, right at about 90 degrees or horizontal, you get a little pinch feeling in your shoulder. Two, that if you try push-ups or bench pressing or chest and shoulder workouts, your shoulder gets really sore. So I'm going to teach you how to restore the proper mechanics of the shoulder. And by that I mean, if you strengthen the muscles I'm about to talk to you about, you restore the proper, what's called roll and glide of the humeral head, which protects the rotator cuff from being pinched underneath the shoulder. This condition is so common that even many people with no shoulder pain have this brewing, and they don't know it until they go toss football for an hour on Saturday and they go, "It killed my shoulder. It's weird, I didn't even injure it." Well, that was the beginning, that was the final straw that broke the camel's back on someone who had a rotator cuff impingement syndrome beginning. So here's how I want you to rehab the shoulder. I have a piece of rubber tubing. I dispense this all the time. I put a big knot in one end, a small knot in the other. We're going to hold that small knot. This large one, we're going to either close in a door, but I found that people were really non-compliant doing it that way. So instead, I myself started doing it this way, and now I recommend that you do this in the car. It is not unsafe to your driving at all. Initially, do it every time you're stopped in a line of traffic, sitting at a traffic light. So we take the large knot, and if I'm working on my right shoulder, I put it over my left thigh and it catches on the seat underneath. Rest the elbow, the right elbow on the console, and never let that elbow leave the console. That elbow must stay put. I don't want any of this motion. This is pure rotation. So here are the rules. Elbow is 90 degrees. Keep the wrist locked, don't let it flop around. And keep the plane of the palm perpendicular to the tubing. In other words, don't let your hand turn. So it looks like this. 1, 2. Notice the elbow is not going up and down, it's pure rotation. And you do as many reps as you can in a set to the point that you'll feel your shoulder really fatigue back here. You won't feel it at the rotator cuff. And see if you can't do 15. When you're done with 15, set it down, and in a matter of 5 to 10 seconds, in a wave, you'll feel the discomfort you just created pass as the muscle reoxygenates. And then just leave this hanging there. And 2 minutes later, do another set. 1, 2, at about this speed. Stay within a relatively pain-free range of motion. In other words, if you get there and you go, "Oh, that pinches in my shoulder," don't go that far from then on. So initially you might have a fairly short arc of motion. That's perfectly fine. It will improve over time. This exercise, the reason that I have people do it in the car is in order to really strengthen the rotator cuff muscles and therefore restore the proper humeral head motion. I want you to do 100 to 150 reps per day, every single day. Okay, you can take weekends off. If you're doing the left shoulder, we're going to do everything just the opposite, except you don't have a console in the car. So you'll put the tubing over the right thigh, catches on the seat, and you'll rest the elbow on the door sill. Again, the most important thing, that elbow stays there and its rotation, but at a slightly higher plane. That should not hurt the rotator cuff. Same exact idea. 100 to 150 reps per day, wrists locked, palm perpendicular to the direction of the tubing, elbow stays still, does not go up and down at all, it only rotates. And most people in 4 to 6 weeks will notice marked improvement and significant reduction in pain of the rotator cuff. This is great for your shoulders. That's it.